Thank you, Zoe, for that introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Joy Henry. I'm coming from the Navajo Nation. I'm representing my Diné people, and I wanted to honor my people in doing so by doing my introduction in Navajo. They usually say back at home to introduce ourselves. So traditionally, Yad Yad Ashina Share Joy Henry and Share Adona and Nishlani Toritini Nishlan since the Kani and Bashish Chin, Aro Kizuchini Dasha Chiado Gashe Dashanella and Nile Sevat Adet that's where I live in Shiprock, or that's where I'm currently from Shiprock. I reside south of Farmington. And as Zoe said, I recently finished college back in 2020. Oh, wow, in 2022. And before that, I was going to high school at Navajo Prep, and I graduated back in 2019. And when I originally went to NAU, it was to study um, what was it called? Social work. I was, I believe, two semesters in with my social work studies, but a lot of the work I wanted to give back to my community, and social work was that area that was heavily needed. But the coursework was really intense emotionally for me, and I wanted to I knew that this position was going to be difficult, but when I entered those courses, it was a little bit too much for me. It was a little bit too much for me, and so what I did, I had a passion when I was in high school of teaching younger Diné kids, Navajo children, at a school in Farmington. So I was helping these young Diné children immersed with our Diné language. So I started focusing on that. I changed my degree to Diné language teaching. Unfortunately, they ended the program. So I was in a pickle, and I kind of had an identity crisis when I was in college. Um, but I believe my spring semester of 2020, that's when COVID happened. I remember that. And I was really immersed with these anthropologies classes I was taking. And a lot of times when you go to these liberal classes, liberal studies, meaning just like your basic classes like math, English, history, um, language arts, and all that. And anthropology is one of those liberal art classes. And when I was taking them, they were talking about uh, Native people, Indigenous people, specifically NAU. It's located in Flagstaff, Arizona, and there's a lot of tribes here in Arizona. There's 22 plus or 22 tribes, and the way the professors would talk about these tribes, some of it, most of the time, was inaccurate, especially with like worldviews. And I didn't appreciate how some of these white Anglo professors were presenting or representing us natives. So what I did, I was really intrigued with this class that I took. It was called Indigenous Perspective of Anthropology, and that's where I got to meet all these wonderful professors. And so I took a liberty to change uh, my major again to anthropology. So for everyone who's either in college or thinking of going to college, um, understand that there's no right way. There's no. Um, it's okay to take a moment and reflect and look at what you're doing in college and ask yourself questions if this is made for you. Because in college, it's unique. you recently just left a nest, and you're going into a whole new world, you're exploring options and everything. So I really encourage everyone to go ahead and find the courage to explore and learn to be open-minded about these options. Because at the time when I was changing all my majors, I was like, is this really meant for me? Is this what I want to do? And I kind of took it hard on myself when I couldn't focus on one major. And so I believe the spring semester, actually, excuse me, the fall semester of 2020, I was honored to be given a position at NAU as a peer instructor. And so as a peer instructor, I myself was still a student. I was still a baby in college, but I had a when I so what I did at NAU, I took this peer instructor course. So basically, I wanted to assist other students, first year students who are coming in to integrate into college. And so I was recommended by one of my professors to do that course, and I was like, oh, what is this? And the the uh, the group, the NAU 100, the transition course, it consists of many, I believe, like sophomores and juniors and seniors who are helping the younger students integrate into the college life. So um, I was like, I don't know if I want to do it because I've seen a lot of the people that were getting the applications. They did not look like me, meaning they were indigenous, and I was intimidated a lot. I was really intimidated to the point where I all the emails that I got from the instructor who was encouraging me to do that program, I just kind of threw it in my spam, in my trash. I was like, oh, I don't want to do it. But I think that night of when the application was due, I was like, ah, okay, I'll do it. It was like 11:30 and it was due at 11:59. So I was like, I quickly did it, and surprisingly, I got into it. And um, so with that whole when I was entering that new stage of life, I knew I wanted to help my indigenous relatives on campus because although there's cultural connections and we have like a cultural center at NAU, and that's the closest thing we can have to home, especially for those who are far away. And so um, when I started teaching, I started online as a professor. So I had a group of students, and NAU kind of just threw me in on an online class, and they didn't really navigate me because when I started getting my classes and started teaching my students the first week of college in August of 2020, I was getting students with disability accommodations, and I was like, oh, I didn't know how to assist them. And even though they have a department at NAU where you can talk to one on one and see the accommodations, I didn't know how to assist the students. So I had a few students, I believe like five. And so I was working with these students one on one, and my goal was to be there the best I can. And so I did that for a good 2 years, the remainder of my stay at NAU. And that's where a lot of these students with disabilities, they were teaching me and I was teaching them. So we were reciprocating information and just teaching one another. And I think that's what was really beautiful about that program that I joined. And even though there were some obstacles I was jumping through, such as I was teaching myself like the legal legality of it at NAU with students and accommodations and all that. So I was teaching myself that, and I was helping these students integrate into college life as normal students. So I really connected with all my students. I believe altogether I had about like 130 students altogether. I taught for 2 years. So I really started barely dipping my toes into the like understanding what it means to have a disability, how to live with it, and it's a part of an individual's identity. And my last year, after I taught my last semester, um, I was taking, I was a senior in spring of 2022, and um, I started having like imposter syndrome where I didn't think I was going to make it and finish with my degree because along with the line of work I was doing as an undergrad in anthropology, it really went against my traditional beliefs. So, for example, I was taking like a biology, anthropology, and I understood that there was going to be a time where I was going to have to interact with human remains. And it was a little triggering. I understand that it would go against my cultural beliefs, but I tried to keep an open mind. And in doing so, you have to walk in two worlds sometimes, and it's hard. So, what I mean, two worlds, I mean, there's a traditional for those um, who practice the cultural beliefs, there's a traditional side, then there's the Western side, the the um the Western knowledge, and I was carrying both of them. But at the time in 2022, my cultural side went down, or it like I wasn't really integrated in my cultural identity because I was away from home, even though home was just like what a 5 hour drive. But I had responsibilities on campus, and I was a teacher's assistant, so I couldn't just, go home when I wanted to. And it was really hard for me when I started having that imposter syndrome. So I kind of fell into a wormhole of depression, and I didn't understand it at the time. And I kind of noticed some of the students who were that I was teaching in that peer instructor class. Um, the symptoms they were describing was kind of similar to what I was facing. So it took me like a good 2 months in order for me to see a professional, um, what is it called, mental health professional, because I was really worried about myself, and I was 3 months away from graduating, and I was so close to uh, quitting. And it was really difficult because I was alone. And for those who are really like culturally connected, there's a stigma with mental health, and I think that it's an influence from like colonialism. So when I would kind of talk about my mental health after I got diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety, and depression, there's that lingering stigma and stereotype, and I didn't know how to navigate it because I just graduated from college. And even though I was done with the workload in college, that it just kind of lingered with me. And I kind of, when I left college and I was going into the real world, I didn't really know how to navigate it. So I took a year off from like finding employment and just took the time to figure out and discover myself. I should have been doing that during college, is what I was telling myself. But at the time, there was just so much stuff going on. There was COVID, there was just so many external factors. So I wanted to be gentle with myself and say, it's okay. You didn't have to learn it then. And I was really trying to understand mental health. So after I got diagnosed with it, with PTSD, anxiety, and depression, I was like, how do I live with this? how do I continue on with my life knowing I know these now? But I took a step back and reflected and said, I was already living with it. I just didn't know. So instead of, making it my whole personality of having these behavioral disorders, I just continued to live with it. So that whole summer of 2020, or the whole year of 2022, after I graduated, the remainder of it, I just tried to take care of myself and learn how to balance both my work life, because at the time I was just kind of like I said, I didn't really want to find employment, so I was just I was job searching and everything, and that's when I came along. Housekeep Benali, he's a part of a company that I'm working with, or not a company, the law firm that I'm working with right now, the Native American Disability Law Center. And I was really influenced when I saw the position as an IDAC. So as an IDAC project coordinator, and I was really intimidated because I felt like I wasn't prepared for it, for the real world, as we would say. So I said, what the heck with it? I applied and I showed it. I was able to get it, but let's see, I'm just looking at my notes right here. And so when I entered the job, I was really struggling still with my mental health, and it's hard to be soft, or I was being really hard on myself, and I didn't know how to um, calm or ease the triggers and all the issues I was going through. So I started following all of these organizations on my social media, because sometimes when my mental health gets kind of bad, I doom scroll. So what doom scrolling is when you're on your phone and you're just like constantly on social media, you continually you're just on your social media for hours on end. So I took the liberty, or I took the courage to start following like these inspirational people, and I came across this. I believe it was like Native Initiatives or Phoenix, Arizona Center. They started reposting like traditional teachings and cultural components of teaching, and it was talking about going back to your roots. And so I was like, okay, I was still having that cultural identity and crisis. So when I started getting the help I needed with therapy, taking my medication, I still felt like something was missing. And so I told my grandparents, my grandparents, their names, oh, actually, they come from the Shiprock area as well. They raised me, my grandparents raised me. And when I went to college, I kind of felt disconnected from them, and it was hurting, that internal pain. So what I needed was that cultural component. I lost what it meant to be a Diné person, a Navajo person. I was away from home. And so in the beginning of at the end of 2022 into 2023, I started, going back to my culture, my Diné culture. And I really love cooking. So I started connecting with my grandmother on cooking. She has like this really old cookbook from like the 1950s that you would get from the Navajo Trading Post, and it had all these like traditional cooking and what is it called, dishes. So I started learning with her, and in that book, it'll be written in the Navajo language. And so that little introduction of just simply the Navajo language again and that bond with my grandma, I started going back to my cultural roots. And I just wanted to really encourage those who felt disconnected or who are reconnecting Indigenous individuals to continue. Because from there on, I felt the encouragement from my grandma, who, she's a strong enough figure to me that I wanted to continue this. So when I started the employment with the Native American Disability Law Center, I started integrating my cultural identity with work, and it really did pay off in the end because I was working with older people and they didn't really expect me to know cultural knowledge. And so when I created that bond, my mental health started to increase. The coping mechanisms that I was doing at home included like just simple things such as praying, the praying in my Denepazad, praying in my Navajo language. And it doesn't have, I was in my head, there's no right way or there's no wrong way of doing these cultural connections. And right then again, when I was scrolling on social media, that's when I saw a traditional coping mechanism. And when I was going through it, I was like, wow, this is a lot of things that I do in my personal life that has actually helped and assisted me during my transition period. So a lot of times when we think of coping mechanisms, we think from a Western perspective. And so when doing these coping mechanisms, some of them are just simple, like beading, weaving, simply, singing traditional songs, learning your language, basically learning traditional food, cultural identity. And it's just, once you dip your toes into that cultural component of teaching, it opens a whole new world. Because now I'm here. Culturally, I know a lot of knowledge, and I'm networking with a lot of these awesome individuals that come from various tribes. And I just want to say like a thank you, and I just want to highlight and appreciate my Diné culture for bringing that harmony back into me, that Hozho, that balance. And I didn't have that balance before, and now I feel like where I was back then, where my cultural side was a little bit lower than my Western side, there's like a balance now where I'm still trying to figure it out, but balancing the two worlds, I was able to balance it because of my the coping mechanisms that I brought back or that I learned from my grandma. And my grandma doesn't understand English. She doesn't know like all these cultural activities and coping mechanisms. Coping mechanisms are beneficial. So every time when I would interact with my grandparents, especially my grandma, I always give thanks to her, that we still have these knowledge and traditional teachings. And it did save me those traditional knowledge and activities. And so that's how I'm still able to carry these cultural practices. And as of now, I still carry those teachings with me. And at the law center, the Native American Disability Law Center, I got the position as a manager, project coordinator for the Intertribal Disability Advocacy Council, and it was a whole new world for me because I still felt like I was a kid. I still felt like a kid at heart because, one night I'll be playing Fortnite and the next day I'll be presenting to a group of people on the findings of, the paper that I was working on with the Intertribal Disability Advocacy Council of the issues that we're having on Indian country. And so, but anyways, what I think the beauty of having these coping mechanisms, a lot of it that I did was community involvement as well. So when I was reaching out to these individuals through my work, a lot of times they would have mental health issues, and they would ask me, because I'd be honest with them too, and I'd say, "Oh, I live with this as well," and they were like, you don't look like you have it or anything." And I told them, I learned to live with it and not let it consume my identity. And I learned to, like, the assistance that I got, the healing that I got through those traditional coping mechanisms helped me bring back my identity, and it's helping me right now in my line of work. So I just want to really encourage the younger folks on here, and well, actually everyone in general who's on here, to connect back to your roots. It's not easy, because from my personal experience, I grew up, with my grandparents. I knew the Dineh Bazad, and when I went to college, I kind of just lost it everything because I was so focused in the Western society and culture. I was trying to impress all these Western people that I forgot myself. So, but one thing I want to leave a note for everyone is to really be proud of who you are, and to reconnect back to your identity, and to learn those traditional coping mechanisms. And it varies from community to community. For example, I had a friend from Hawaii. He was from one of the mainlands, and his coping mechanism was the ocean. His healing properties were at the ocean, and going to school at NAU, we don't really have that water connection. We don't have the ocean, but he was still finding ways to have those cultural roots with his water. And so it's for everyone, it's really unique to coping mechanisms. And I really encourage everyone to find those cultural, traditional knowledge and coping mechanisms to assist you in navigating your life. And that's how those coping mechanisms helped me in my transition. And that's how I learned I'm still learning how to navigate and learn with my ADHD and my depression and my anxiety. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone for listening. And I hope you do take something from my conversation about me finding my cultural connections, and that you learn to live with it. And other than that, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Is there any comments or anything? No? Okay. Okay, yeah. So my email, I'm gonna go ahead. I just got a question. It's Joy. Do you mind sharing your email? Okay, so right now I'm gonna go ahead and put my email in the chat. I posted my email address to the message board. For those who are a little bit curious with the IDAC report, we'll be the IDAC group will be publishing it to the public hopefully in May. The IDAC report is really unique because as a team, we took the approach to decolonize the report. So it's a really unique approach that we took upon. And please email me if you have any questions or if you're interested in reviewing this report. If you just have any general questions about coping mechanisms and college life. I'm all open to everyone's questions. And other than that, do we have any more questions? Let me see. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. I hope you have a good day. Enjoy your weekend and try something that will connect, like culturally ground you this weekend. Either it be, learning your language, eating a traditional food, taking a moment to, really meditate and pray. So thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for your honesty and vulnerability, Joy. It's really appreciated.